Welcome along to the first episode of The Red Eye, our brand new podcast on everything Munster rugby. I'm Alan Quinlan, and joining me every week will be a Munster legend, Grand Slam winner, and a proud Waterford woman, Niamh Briggs. How are you, Niamh?
Hi, Quinny. How are you?
Are you looking forward to having these chats on all Munster rugby?
Yeah, I'm excited. I think there's always lots to debate, especially when we're chatting together. And,
we're putting ourselves in a precarious position, though, that we're both Munster people, and if it's not all positive, we're in trouble. But we'll try and, what this podcast is all about is, we're going to be looking at everything to do with Munster rugby. We'll be analysing all the games. Some big name guests, of course. We need to get their opinions and what's going on in the women's game, of course, at underage and club level. But mainly we'll be talking about what you're seeing in Thomond Park and on your TV screens every week. So we're hoping to get feedback and your thoughts on what's happening in Munster. You can tweet us at Rugby Channel 15 on Twitter, or check out the Rugby Channel on social media. So get involved if you can, and please subscribe to the podcast. Just search for The Red Eye and you get the podcast straight to your phone every week. So that's the little intro over with, Niamh. Have you been busy, and what's been happening for you in the last while? I know that you've been involved with the Munster senior women's team and they won the Inter-Pros, but the Irish stuff must have been really disappointing as well for the women's game.
Yeah, hugely. I think my season probably started back in April or May, I think, when we started pre-season with Munster, and it's brilliant to have it back because we've missed it when, the 18, 20 months that it was gone with COVID. So from that perspective, I think everybody was just so excited and energized by the break. So yeah, look, it's been incredibly busy over the last few months. Obviously a brilliant summer with Munster, learned a huge amount, and it was great to see those girls win. I didn't think you could get a buzz from, not playing anymore, but I definitely got it on the sideline for that campaign. And then, yeah, look, the Irish thing was incredibly disappointing. I think just because how good that group are, and just things didn't work out for them. But we didn't really have too much time to rest on it because straight back into club, and it's been a busy few weeks for us.
Throughout the season, obviously, we'll talk about what you think should and shouldn't change and how we can help the women's game more. But like everyone has been speaking about the last few weeks, but it's nice for the Munster women now. They're going to be honoured just before the Munster Connacht game in the URC game on Saturday. Yeah,
look, it's huge. I think it's a great buzz for the girls. I think they probably deserve it 100%, but they've probably missed it, a huge amount over the last couple of seasons. To be able to get to represent Munster is a huge, huge honour, and they only get to do it for maybe 3 to 5 games a year, the way the season is structured. So I hope as they get presented at half-time, people get behind them and give them a big Munster roar, because they were fantastic over the whole summer programme.
Yeah, and of course, there's 75% capacity at that game on Saturday against Connacht. We'll talk more about looking ahead to that game in a little bit, but your assessments, and obviously I'll give my opinion on this as well, but Munster so far, 3 games, maximum points, started off well against the Sharks, good win there, finished with that brilliant Simon Zebo try, and the prodigal son had returned. He opened his account in Thomond Park as well with the first try. Poor first half against the Stormers, and then they finished strong with direct kind of forward play and scored 4 tries in the second half. But Sunday was something special, really. I genuinely, and like many other people, and we can't be given out for this, I don't think, because outside of the Munster camp, I think most people thought that would be really difficult. Johan van Graan made 11 changes to his Munster side. It was an inexperienced side, a lot of young players, but unbelievably after that game, there was this sense of maybe it's a game changer for a lot of these young players, and maybe the perception and maybe some of the criticism or negativity around this Munster team, things are starting to happen. I know it's very early days, and the Scarlets were dreadful, to be fair, but Munster made them look dreadful. So we can't take anything away. That was an unbelievable performance on Sunday, wasn't it?
Yeah, hugely. I think I was working for the Game 40 and I was coming back down in the car afterwards, and I was like genuinely buzzing because it was so good to see an expansive game of rugby, but it wasn't even that. It was just how clever they were about certain things. They were able to control the game and the tempo, and their skill level and their ability to run lines and angles just put Scarlets on the back foot all the time. But not even that. I think their line speed was incredible, and it put Scarlets under a huge amount of pressure. And like, you know, on paper, that should have been a Scarlets victory, you know, stacked with internationals and Lions players returning. But to be able to, I think it was almost like youthful exuberance. They just went out and were almost able to play the way they wanted. I don't really know how to explain it, but I just 100% agree with you. I think it is a game changer. And I think we saw snippets of it over the first two games. You mentioned that last try by Zebo against the Sharks. I think when you look back on that and the handling, the small pop passes, the running onto the ball, we hadn't really seen that before. And you know, and wanter and ability to get the ball to the edge, I think that's been something that probably was missing over the last couple of seasons. So I think it's been brilliant. I think it's been a brilliant start. And I think psychologically going back into training on Monday, if you're a young player, you realize, oh my God, I'm going to get opportunities. When I do get opportunities, and I can go and take them because I've done really well on the match on Sunday. But also if you're a senior player, you're thinking over your shoulder, God, these lads, you know, they're incredibly good. They were able to put in a huge performance. So it's pushing them on as well. So that competition within the squad will only be a huge driver for Munster going forward, I think.
When we both say we're surprised, and we mean that respectfully, I think we'll get a pass for being surprised because these young players just brought a performance and an attitude, as you said, and I think no baggage, and I think it was probably a really shrewd move by Johan van Graan. You're damned if you do and damned if you don't. You've got to manage your squad, and I listened to Johan before the game saying that he was really looking forward to this opportunity. And we do hear coaches saying that at times. And sometimes you think it's a message that, look, we have to rest players and we have a busy block coming up, but and we have to give these guys game time. But you kind of sense that he really did believe that these young players are knocking at his door week on week and that they have quality and talent. And I think what that did on Sunday is for anybody watching, it enthused them. Like you say, you're going back in the car and you have this feel-good factor. We're both Munster people, diehard Munster people, and we want them to do well. We've probably put ourselves in a position of being critical at times over the years, airing some of our frustrations, which is not always easy, because I always say to people, you know, when you're talking about your home team that you want them to do well, there's no enjoyment in being critical. Sometimes you get accused of trying to do it for just to make headlines and stuff like that. But nothing would please me more than to see this team winning and fulfilling their potential. I think there is some frustrations, and there has been in performances in the last couple of years, essentially at the end of the season, you know, when they get to those cup semi-finals or finals or the latter stages of Europe. So there is some genuine reasons for criticism. But I just felt on Sunday that the likes of Thomas Ahern showed that he's able to play at this level. You know, I've always spoken about him in the last couple of years. I think he has the potential to go on and be a top-class international and maybe even be a British and Irish line. Fineen Wycherley, I just thought he showed a presence, an aggression, an attitude, and a discipline. He was disciplined, because there's some similarities probably to the way I played, where you're trying to be in that fight and you're really aggressive, and that's natural for him. But I think his discipline was really good. And I just loved that attitude. They weren't being pushed back. There was moments in that game on Sunday that it wasn't necessarily just scoring the tries and racking up the scoreboard. It was the way they defended mauls, their accuracy at the breakdown. And they were the things that kind of don't jump out at you when you see line breaks and things like that. I just thought that there was a real detail around their breakdown and the way they defended the Scarlets. And they didn't get bullied around the place. You look at their number 8, Callum Mafomi, the Tongan international, really powerful, gets across the gain line. He was smashed back every time by these guys. Jack O'Sullivan, his try, Chris Clote. So I think it, like you said, I think Monday morning, even the journey home of the plane, that for the Munster more experienced guys who are watching at home, that just gives everyone a lift. And I think everybody watching that game. So now they've got to back it up and try and get some consistency. Obviously, we'll talk about RG Snyman in a minute. I just want to go back to Simon Zebo. You mentioned him, and maybe there's a question mark sometimes around that bit of natural flair and X Factor stuff. He brings that. That first try in Thomond Park against the Sharks, the reaction, we were both there. It was just like the prodigal son has returned, and this guy can give you, even though it was a fortuitous pickup, length of the field stuff, but people want to see that excitement again, don't they, from Zebo?
Yeah, hugely. I think, and it was hilarious to watch in terms of he wasn't even near the ball at times, and the chants were going out from the crowd of Zebo, and sure, he was slapping it up and he was loving it. And yeah, look, I think it was a very shrewd move by Munster to bring him back. I thought it was very intelligent in terms of bringing that field goal factor back into the sport, especially after the year or two, that they weren't in the stands, and obviously performances at times weren't at the level that probably Munster hold themselves account to. So you could just see the minute he ran out, the energy that was, and I wouldn't even mind, I think there was only 12 or 13,000 in Thomond Park for that evening, and it felt like a full Thomond Park when he got the ball, and that's what he does. And I think you look at the young players like the Shane Daly, Calvin Nash especially, I really feel like it's going to be a big year for him. I thought he was exceptional the other day. I think, they're going to learn a huge amount from him, because they both have the ability to have flair, and they both have this, ability to have a little bit of X factor. Their footwork is incredible. Their speed over the ground is very good. So he can bring that out of players. And I think the more that we get to see him play, the more that he plays with the likes of Joey Carberry and Ben Healy, we'll get to see more off the cuff stuff as well, because he draws that out of people, because he sees things differently. And I think you always need that when you're in a rugby squad, but I think it was brilliant. I just think the energy off the crowd and the try celebration, the Z coming out of it was super. But yeah, look, I think it's brilliant for him and brilliant for Munster to have him back.
And it was a real reminder, wasn't it, that last try? And I thought the handling and the passing was exceptional. You mentioned it, but there was a lovely little deft kick from Dan Goggin, and then Zebo finishes it off. It was just a lovely moment for him. I played with Zebo towards the end of my career, Simon Zebo, and I just think he brings something different. It's a laid back attitude sometimes, but it's great to see that, I think, in a very structured modern day rugby scenario that we have. And I hope and I believe that he will bring that bit of excitement and maybe put a smile on people's faces, because he's a very laid back sort of person. So that was, they scored 6 tries there, 5 tries then against the Stormers. We have to address the elephant in the room, and that's the first half performance. I think they know themselves. To be fair, the Stormers were brilliant, their execution, their attack. And I would suspect that when Munster looked back in that, and even if it's not said, well, certainly if I watched it, I would have been, and I did commentary on the game, I was in awe of the handling skills, the passing, the execution, just the timing of pass and trying to keep the ball alive. They were very, very impressive in that first half, the Stormers, but there was an energy or an aggression missing from Munster, wasn't there? Maybe they expected it to happen, but they just allowed the Stormers play a lot as well.
To be fair, I think it's really difficult to try and play rugby when you don't have the ball for 30, I think it was like 32 minutes, I think, before they then put any phases together. So from that aspect, I think it's really difficult to try and get yourself into the game when you're tackling, getting back up in the defensive line, getting back up in the defensive line. It takes a huge amount of energy out of you. I think for Munster, you come away from that game, thinking that you're in a really good place because you've withstood this huge barrage of possession. And I couldn't get over it at the game myself, really, how physically big the Stormers were. The wingers were big, almost as big or bigger than our back rows. Like, they were absolutely huge. And when that, if you can manage your way around that and come through it, I think 2 pivotal moments for me. The Peter O'Mahony save under the posts, that was outrageous.
And he deserves a mention for those 2 games. I thought Peter O'Mahony
was excellent.
Was exceptional. And sometimes when you're an Irish international, former British and Irish Lions captain, you've got to remotivate yourself and get going again. And there's a pressure and expectation to deliver. And I just thought those first couple of games, line-out wise, breakdown, and that was a pivotal moment, wasn't it?
Yeah,
and then
hugely.
You move on a couple 10 minutes later, and Jack O'Donoghue was scoring at the other end.
And you're going into half time. Total different conversation for me. So
did you feel they would turn it around though?
Yeah, I did. I thought Summers, when Jack got the try, you could almost see the deflation under the posts. I don't know if you noticed, but they looked out on their feet. There was fellas on their hands and knees, fellas sucking air, trying to get as much into their lungs as possible. And I think they probably went in thinking, we've just played all the rugby and we're only one score ahead. So yeah, look, I thought the second half was brilliant. And I just thought it was a really strange kind of narrative after the game that there were just 4 forward tries. Like, if I'm playing a game of rugby, and I know you probably love it because you are a forward, but you don't really care how you win, especially in these big games. You just care that you win, and you win so well convincingly after being under such pressure. And I thought, if something's working, why change it? So Munster's ability to take Stormers on up front throughout that second half was working. So why would you change it? And we both know at the end of the day, it's a results-driven business, and we've got to try and win as much as possible. And
is it a bit unfair that we're looking for flair and we're looking for more?
I think it can be. I think
there's more emphasis on what Stephen Larkham is doing. Is that because of the end result in the last couple of seasons, where Munster haven't won a trophy, and maybe in a couple of games they've probably kicked a little bit much, or they've struggled to chase a game if they've been behind? Is it a little bit unfair, or is it realistic? Because we're going to try and get fans interaction on this podcast, and whether you agree with it or not, or like it or not, social media can be nasty, but it can also be very informative as to what people are thinking. And the fans give opinions. We want balanced opinions. We don't want opinions that are not backed up by facts. But maybe there's probably a line there that some of it is unfair and some of it is fair, because have they an ability to really improve the attack? And I think they showed that on Sunday, that the ambition is there, and maybe that last try. And what they tried to do in the Sharks game is move the ball. Some of the accuracy wasn't good. The mitigation there is it's early season stuff.
It's also the first game, yeah, 100%.
But the DNA of Munster is forward play, being excellent at the breakdown, scrum, line out, set piece, all that stuff. So I had no problem leaving the Stormers game thinking, would I love to see 4 tries scored by the backs and through loads of phases? Yeah, it'd be nice. But I had no issue, because you have to manage your way through games like that. And I thought they were really shrewd and intelligent what they did. And do you think though that there's do
you think that there's an expectation on the back of, obviously, you had a very successful era, and an incredibly brilliant team for that time. And I was obviously fortunate to be involved with an Irish team that was very successful. But these things can be cyclical, and they come around. And for the last couple of years, I think Munster have been trying to bring players through from an academy level that probably needed more patience in game time and getting one chance and not really playing again. Whereas I kind of feel now that the squad depth, the young lads coming through are probably more ready. They're that year or two older. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think the comparisons of playing of your time can be really difficult, I think, for a Munster player. And I think I'd like to know anybody's opinion from a playing point of view. Do they feel that? Maybe they do.
Well, look, I think there's always pressure. Obviously, was very lucky to be part of great teams that got the semi-finals, finals, eventually won it. And there was probably a consistency in Europe over a 10, 12-year period that was unbelievable. So you expect that to happen every year. And they've probably, since that time, Munster last won a trophy in 2011. There's a baggage that unfortunately is lingering there all the time. And I'd love nothing more for them to create their own legacy and win European trophies, win the
it's kind of
domestic
hard to
title
do
as well.
though. Do you not
It
realize?
Trophies are hard to win.
Trophies are so hard to win. And I think it's very flippant.
Yeah, you look at the success Man United had in soccer in the UK, and they haven't won a league in since Ferguson left, and there's always going to be comparisons and to previous teams and success. So that's just part and parcel of sport. I think it's unfair sometimes because so many teams have got better. The depth across Europe has got better, and so they're always going to be there. That's always going to be there, and unfortunately, like it or not, until they maybe win a European trophy or win the league, that they can shut everybody up, and that's something that they have to carry. But you just feel that there's more depth in the squad there. There's a lot of young players coming through. And Sunday, even though it was very early doors, that enthusiasm, that feeling that some of these players, maybe it's like a crossing of the line, that they can believe in themselves. And playing at this level is all about confidence and self-belief.
Who stood out for you now?
Well, I think Ben Healy looked very, very composed. I think he's passing, he's kicking. Of course, you don't get a perfect performance in anything. There was one or two little mistakes. The kick he put out in the full, but he had a 50-22 at one stage, which is, his boot is incredible. His ability to kick long-range penalties. If he can develop his game and be more assured and look like he's a real kind of attitude, which you want from your 10, he can be a brilliant player, and he can develop his game. Jack Crowley, unfortunately, we didn't get to see enough of him when he came on. They didn't have a lot of ball at that stage, but I thought he was brilliant. Jack O'Sullivan, I love the fact that, being a former back row, I just love the lines of running for that first try. His overall ability to defend, the energy of Jack O'Sullivan, Alex Kendall coming off the bench, John Hodden at his back. Jack O'Donoghue is backing up big performances.
Jack O'Donoghue, for me, has been one of the most consistent players for Munster over the last 12, 18 months. And I can see him taking that O'Mahony, following that O'Mahony type of a role where he's become a real leader.
Whether the players like it or not, they've got to do it in big games and try and find consistency. Yeah. And then they get an aura about them and they get a presence and stuff like that. The work rate is second to none from these guys, but it's just sometimes that Gavin Coombs, CJ Stander is gone. Coombs, what a player. He's a huge future. They can build a lot of big things around him in matches because he's so big and powerful. Guys can run off him. I was really delighted for Chris Cloete because he's had an up and down scenario with Munster in the last couple of years, a couple of injuries. What he did on Sunday was what he does best when he's on song, and I thought he was brilliant. And it's just a depth chart, and these guys are buzzing around the training ground now. And look, the proof will be in the pudding when we go forward and they get their next chance, this group of players. Maybe that'll be away to the Ospreys in 2 weeks. Can they go back over and deliver that kind of a performance and get a result?
I think when you look at this group of players, especially these young lads, I think, you can't help but feel like, okay, we could be onto something here. And I think, like, for me, I thought Liam Coombs was very well. And I hadn't seen much of him before in terms of, obviously on the wing, we've seen him. But to go into play at centre, it's a very difficult position to play if you're not playing it or growing up playing it week in, week out, because there's a huge amount of space that you've got to be able to defend. You've got to be able to connect with both wingers and your 12. It's a lot of responsibility on somebody, and I think, like, 2 tries... He played AIL last week. I think that's really cool as well, that, that young lads are watching this and they're thinking, heading into an under 17, 18s kind of youth with Munster or some MTS, and they're looking at the likes of Liam Coombs or Neil Cronin and these guys that are coming, played AIL 1 week, coming out, churning out a performance like that.
Yeah, Neil Cronin is someone too who's had a tough time, and I thought he performed really well. And they'll feel part of it, because sometimes... And I saw it in my own time with Munster. Sometimes you have guys in the squad who they train and they're bouncing around the place and they're happy enough, but do they really believe that they're able to step in and play in a big European game? And is it like throwing them to the wolves when they have to do that? These kind of games is where you build that belief and confidence. Liam Coombs was brilliant. You mentioned Calvin Nash as well. We haven't seen a lot of Matt Gallagher. I thought he was really good as well. Dan Goggin is someone who just epitomizes turning up every week. He's physical, he's aggressive, he's full of energy. So right across the board, I think the performances were. But another one was Stephen Archer, 232nd game, and he won a scrum at one stage against a very strong Scarlets front row, and he was the one who was awarded. Well, the forward pack pushed him off a scrum, and they got the penalty. But it was Archer who had that little wry smile. I think it was great because whether young or old, I think kind of creating a standard that you've got to bring that every week, and that's something that maybe they can learn. And we were lucky, and when I played, without going back too far, there was a kind of a standard created. And look, we lost lots of matches as well, and we lost lots of semi-finals, and there was less expectation and pressure. And we spoke about the template and the expectation that's with Munster rugby. It'll be there forevermore. When this generation of players finishes in 20 years' time, they'll talk about, hopefully they'll be talking about this group that have won some trophies in the next couple of years, because they are young and they have that ability to do that. Dermot Byrne, what about the line break, the kick through, Jeremy O'Loughlin? We can't go through everyone. But
I know,
really
but I actually think a couple of things there, right, that you mentioned. So for me, Archer to go out and get those, a tight head, ridiculously consistent for so long, to be able to go in 232 appearances is like, it's outrageous when you think about professional game, being able to have your body ready for 232 club games. Unbelievable. I think Dermot Byrne could be a big bolter for Munster this season. I think not really from a case of that we don't have any depth at hooker. I think Niall Scannell has had a brilliant start to this season. And I thought OB was brilliant last season.
You want that depth. You want Niall Scannell thinking. And I met Niall Scannell at the edge of the pitch last week. And one of the games, I shouldn't have been near anywhere where the players were warming up because I was in the red zone and I got into trouble for that. So I can't do that again when I'm near Thomond Park. But Dermot Byrne is someone that I think has...
He's incredibly explosive.
Really, unbelievably so. But that'll put pressure on Niall Scannell, and it'll
and OB, to be fair.
And make them stay alert and stuff like that. So, look, overall, it was a good day. I don't think anyone will get carried away with it, because you got to make sure that you're alert and aware now that in Saturday week, when they play the Ospreys will be looking back at the Scarlets game and say, this is what Munster did to Scarlets. We're not going to allow this happen. And my experience of going to Wales, and that's why I was a little bit pessimistic on Sunday, because you look at the team sheet and you look at the Scarlets team and you think, okay, these guys are British and Irish Lions, they're Welsh internationals, there's loads of them there, and this is an inexperienced Munster side who went there and kind of proved everybody wrong, which was brilliant. But the Scarlets will make sure that, they're really in the fight early on. And if Munster went over there and the next time with this group of players and won by 3 points, it'd be just as good a win, because I think backing it up now and getting more wins on the road, if these guys are going to be the side that are going to be seen as the ones that are going to play some of these away games, because you have to manage the minutes and the game time. Look, there's a lot of positives that came out of that. We won't go into all the detail, but I think the big pluses were that breakdown detail, some of the attack, Calvin Nash, going outside Steph Evans. For me, with the handoff, you'd be frustrated if you were a Scarlets defensive coach or Steph Evans himself. But I just thought the confidence there to give a little skip, go there, put Liam Coombs away. So loads of positives for them. But let's see, they've got to back it up and try and get consistency. The big disappointment and the heartbreak and the blow for everybody. And I think you could sense that frustration, that disappointment when RG Snyman limps off the field. What an horrendous situation. He's played 54 minutes in 4 appearances since Munster signed him. So what can you say about that? It's
I think
so
first
hard
of all,
to take for the player personally as well.
Yeah, I'm just going to say, I think
we're all concerned and we're saying, oh, it's bad for Munster, but
no, you got to talk about the human element too. I think from his own perspective, he seems to have really bought into the ethos and the culture within and around Munster. And I think, you see players, even when he scored that try, they all running over to him. I think that for me just epitomised how popular he was within the squad. it's different, you know. The first injury, you kind of, like, I've been there, jumped from one real serious injury to another within 2 weeks, similar to RG. So first one, you're full of enthusiasm for your rehab because you're thinking, okay, look, you've got a carrot to get back. You can make you think, okay, I'm going to work on things that I'm not so good at, and I'm going to come back as a better player. But when something so quick, turns quickly like that, you're just staring down the barrel at, look, and you know what's ahead of you. And I think, from that perspective, it's a really difficult thing. And I think his face looked so disconsolate walking down the tunnel. And he kind of knew, as a supporter, as a fan, that whatever had happened wasn't good. And then confirmed as a serious knee injury again. You just got to really feel for the guy. I think, before you even look at it from a Munster perspective, you've just got to really feel for him as a person. And I think we can forget, you've spoken a lot about mental health and been a real advocate for that. You can forget that these players are people too. And, so yeah, look, I think, when I was in that position, I, had tore my hamstring off the bone and then come back, tore my Achilles 2 weeks out from the World Cup. Like, there's nothing really that anybody can say or do. I think you just got to find a place within your head to be able to just get out of bed and continue on and start a rehab program. So yeah, look, I just felt really good for him. And then obviously
it's a shame, isn't it? Because you mentioned the reaction, and from what I hear, he's a guy who's turned up. He's trained unbelievably well, and he's been really positive around the squad. So I think he just wants to play and fulfill the hype and the excitement around his initial signing and stuff, and maybe repay Munster. So I really hope, and there's speculation about this, and we have to say it's speculation, that Munster want to extend his contract and he wants to extend. Is there a risk in that? Of course, but wouldn't it be a lovely scenario? We're probably not going to see him for the rest of the season. Wouldn't it be a lovely scenario that he was able to extend his contract and that we see a consistent run for RG Snyman? Because deep down, I would say he's a game changer. He's a game changer in a European Cup semi-final.
Phenomenal player.
Or he's a game changer in a URC semi-final or final. I think he's someone that can, and maybe it's unfair to say that, but like, this is the reality. He's a freak of nature. He's someone who can just stop a maul on his own, or else make a line break up the field 50, 60 yards and offload to someone. So they've got to do without him. So it's important, I think, and we'll move on in a sec from this, to absorb the disappointment, acknowledge it, and I think wish the player well, because I just hope we have a scenario, whether it be in 12 months or 18 months, that we're saying, isn't it great to see RG Snyman going out week after week playing for Munster? Hopefully it comes to that, and
yeah, look, I think
he does.
To be fair, I've had enough dealings with the Munster medical staff, and they're absolutely top class. They're, so they won't leave any stone unturned. And I think the frustrating thing for both the player and for them as a squad is that they really managed him very well. Like, there was nobody rushing anybody back, and went through a huge amount of rehab and a lot of training before he even got onto the pitch. So this is just like probably a real freak accident, I think. And and as I definitely echo your sentiments. Just wish him all the best, and hopefully
we can see him out in a Munster jersey. Just on the depth chart, and we'll probably go through this at different stages of the season. Tyburn, John Klein, Finian Wycherley, Thomas Ahern, Jason Jenkins. They're your second row options. Then in the academy, you've got Paddy Kelly, Owen O'Connor, and Keane Hurley, who made his debut last year. So there's a lot of good players there. Jason Jenkins kind of was signed as a back row for a year, maybe to help some of these younger players and bring a bit of physicality. He now probably they'll be legitimately allowed to use him as a second row, because I think the idea would have been to try and play him, bring him into the back row and bring some more cover and power and strength there. So there is a depth chart there that's not bad, but look, hopefully. I think too, it obviously changed the conversation around Tyburn as well. Because I think in our heads, when you looked at the likes of RG, been fit and able, Klein, Wycherley, Ahern, that you would have thought, okay, it'll be 2 of that 4 that'll start the biggest games in the second row, and Tyburn will probably be pushing for a 6, and how you fill the rest of the back row after that is that's why Van Grant's getting paid the big bucks. But
I think now that conversation looks, we move Byrne into the second row.
There's lots of options, I think, there. And I'm excited with all the young back row players, and I hope they go on and make a name for themselves, particularly Kendall and Jack O'Sullivan and John Hodnett, to see them back, because the way the game is now, you're going to have a lot of rotation week after week. Niamh, we don't have a lot of time. We have loads of stuff and we'll cover loads of things throughout the season. But just looking quickly ahead to Connacht, and briefly, I think Connacht shift 50 points in the Rainbow Cup. They went up to Ulster, had a great win in Ulster. They scored some brilliant tries. They went and played at home against Leinster and shipped 50 points. Andy Friend spoke about it being one of the most disappointing performances, and it was probably for Connacht, because I think they're probably, I heard Andrew Trimble say the other day on Off the Ball that they're probably everyone's second favourite team, if you're not a Connacht person, obviously, because they just bring a kind of a freedom and an enjoyment to the game, and probably have been at times, respectfully, the poor relations and haven't got all the support and backing that they need. So there's a real affiliation. People like watching Connacht and like seeing them doing well. They went to Munster then the week after, and in very simple terms, I think they cost Munster a trophy. That gap of not winning since 2011, I think there was a Rainbow Cup trophy there for Munster, and we kind of expected, well, it'll be difficult, but maybe if Munster win this game, then they go on and they put themselves in a position to go and get to that Rainbow Cup final and win it. But Connacht went to Thomond Park and they changed that narrative and they won, and it was an incredible win for them. So there's a template to look at here last year from a Munster point of view. Bundy Aki is back, and they'll want to turn things around, won't they, on Saturday? Yeah,
hugely. I think, to be fair, Connacht, when they play well, are so good to watch. They play an unbelievable brand of rugby, very exciting. They look to keep the ball alive a huge amount, work the edges. And as a spectator, it's what you want to see. You want to. I think they're just building something really good in terms of their culture. They're on the back.
They're on the back of probably a poor start to get away to Cardiff, a brilliant win against the Bulls, which kind of you sensed ignited them a little bit. And then last week they lose at home to Dragons. So they're coming with a bit of a chip on their shoulders, what I'm trying to say.
Completely. And I think that's probably been the big thing about them, is that while they played this unbelievable brand of rugby, that their consistency is something that they need to iron out and work on. And I think, I think two things on that Dragons result. Maybe we haven't given Dragons and Dean Richards enough kudos, because they disrupted a huge amount of Leinster the previous week, and then to come and beat Connacht, 100% brilliant. And it's what the competition needs. But on the flip side of that is that there were times that Connacht were in positions to go and beat Dragons and they couldn't take it. And I think I went up to the Munster Connacht game sports ground last year, and that Munster came away with a win in the last couple of minutes, and that was a big thing coming away from there as well. Like, Connacht had put themselves into positions to go and win that game. They had a scrum 5 meters out, and they just had wrong decisions and chose Munster wrong options.
13 minutes.
Munster
probably did everything really good for 65 minutes, and then
I know, but I'm just saying, like,
things
there's that
turned and Connacht could have won the game.
Yeah,
and that would have been, we're talking about game changers.
So I think
that
Connacht,
finished product at times.
Yeah, Connacht are not far off it, but it's when you're not on it, like, as in, if you're just that little bit away, it can look way worse than what it is, if that makes any sense. And I just do think that Munster have to be on their game.
What I think you're saying, and I understand this, you can get this brilliant performance like the Bulls one, and then if they're a little bit of couple of percent off in their mind around their attitude, aggression, intensity, and and to be fair, Andy Friend thought maybe they overtrained and were a little bit fatigued, but that little bit of energy makes a big difference at this level. I think they'll bring a different energy this week. Bundy Aki will lift all the players. They'll know that Munster's a big scalp. That can change their narrative. The difficulty here for Connacht, and Andy Friend spoke about it, and he's right. Getting into Europe for Connacht is where they need to be on a consistent basis. And the way the league is positioned now, with your pools, and the top of each pool goes automatically in, and there's 4 places left in a league position. So they've made it difficult for themselves, losing 2 games so far. So this is a must-win game for them. But I think Munster will be aware of what happened last season, and they'll probably have their own little chip on their shoulder. And Lord to mercy on poor Axel, and he's dead 5 years on Saturday, which is incredible to think. And I know all the Munster fans and everyone in Irish rugby will remember him, and it's still hard to believe it. But we always have little chats about statements and things he said, and one of the great statements Axel would have said is we're better when we're bitter. So there's going to be a little bit of bite to this game, and if Axel was around, that's what he'd be saying if he was a player or a coach, that they're going to bring a real attitude, but we've got to bring one as well, because essentially I would say they cost Munster a trophy last year. Well, the real answer to that is Munster probably cost themselves at that game. But if Munster had won that game, they made a lot of mistakes in it, and Connacht were brilliant. If Munster won that, they could have got a trophy, and it was there for Connacht.
You're definitely not holding on to that anyway, are you?
No, but I'm just saying, if I was a player, I'd be thinking about that. It's no disrespect to either side. Connacht were brilliant in Thomond Park, and I think that's what Andy Friend will be saying to his players. This is what we can do, and we've been here last year, we can win. So that's the intrigue for me, and I think there'll be a bit of bite to this game, because there's a bit of even though there's obviously rivalry between the provinces, it's grown a little bit between Munster and Connacht. There's some Munster players that are there that played with Munster before. They're going to be involved, and Bundy Aki is back. We could talk and talk and talk. We will have loads of time to do that. As you said, if I was getting paid by the word, I'd be a very wealthy man. But we've got to leave it. So that's us done for week 1. We'll be back next week to reflect on the game against Connacht. I've got to say this again, because we want interaction. Do get in touch with your thoughts on the Munster performance. Tweet us at Rugby Channel 15, or just search the Rugby Channel and make sure you subscribe to the Red Eye wherever you get your podcasts. That way we can get that interaction, thoughts from people. So that's it for this week. Take care, and thanks a million. Good luck.